Few men realize the price they pay for wasting their vital energy every day. Modern society has convinced them that instant pleasure equals freedom, but it's quite the opposite. Addiction to stimulation, lack of focus, constant fatigue, and a lack of purpose are symptoms of the same illness, the depletion of creative power. And when a man loses this power, he loses his radiance, his clarity, and, above all, his presence. Semen retention is the silent antidote that awakens the dormant inner warrior. This guide isn't about blind abstinence, but about regaining power. Each day represents a step on this climb toward personal mastery. It doesn't matter if you've tried and failed. The difference between those who win and those who give up lies in the awareness of purpose. The person who understands the value of their own energy begins to see the world differently. They don't seek pleasure, they seek direction. And that is the true beginning of freedom. Over the next 30 days, you'll learn how to break the cycle of self-sabotage and transform desire into fuel for your evolution. You'll realize that semen retention isn't a burden, but a gift, a chance to discover who you are when you master yourself. What was once a lack of control becomes discipline. What was once weakness becomes power. And, step by step, you'll see your energy rise, your outlook change, and the world begin to react to your new vibration. But be careful, this is not an easy path. It requires courage, consistency, and faith. There will be days when your mind will beg to return to its old pattern, and that's when transformation begins. Each impulse mastered is a spiritual victory. Each day conquered is a reprogramming of your destiny. And when you reach the end of this plan, you will understand that true pleasure lies not in giving in, but in creating. So, if you feel ready to reclaim your power, align your body, mind, and spirit, and live with purpose, this 30-day plan is your starting point. You're not here by chance. You're here because something inside you is tired of living half-heartedly. And that inner voice, which brought you here, is your call to awaken the man who has always existed silently within you. In the early days of semen retention, a man begins to face his greatest enemy, himself. The mind, accustomed to quick rewards, screams for pleasure. And this is where many give up, not out of weakness, but out of ignorance. They don't understand that the urge is simply raw energy begging for direction. When a man decides to stop, he's not just avoiding the physical act, but also interrupting a cycle of emotional avoidance. It's like kicking an invisible addiction that fuels laziness, lack of focus, and loss of purpose. This period is a shock to the conscience. Suddenly, he realizes how much he was a slave to a habit that made him feel exhausted, irritated, and empty. The brain, addicted to dopamine, tries to convince him to give up, creating perfect excuses. This is why the inner mentor needs to be stronger than the voice of temptation. A good exercise is to observe one's thoughts without reacting. Just look, breathe, and let them pass. This is the beginning of true discipline, controlling the impulse before it controls you. During these days, the body begins to understand that something is changing. There is more energy, but also more anxiety. The secret is in channel walking outdoors, practicing deep breathing, or doing 30 minutes of physical exercise help balance the nervous system. Men who practice semen retention need to learn how to move the energy, not repressing it. Otherwise, it turns into irritation or wet dreams. Retention is about redirecting, not resisting. The mind, at this stage, loves to deceive. It says, just this once, or you deserve a break. But each relapse reinforces the bondage. True progress comes when one understands who he is doing this. It's not about proving something to others. It's about discovering the power of one's own life force. It's about seeing oneself as a creator, not a hostage to one's own desires. When a man understands this, each day without ejaculating stops being a sacrifice and becomes a silent victory. Little by little, he begins to feel something different, an inner strength difficult to describe. His gaze changes, his body seems to respond with more vitality, and a clarity dawns in his mind. It's the harbinger of transformation. But for this energy to truly blossom, he'll need to clear his mental terrain and cut off the invisible triggers that pull him back into his old routine. And that's exactly what will begin in the coming days. After the first few days of semen retention, the body begins to adapt, but the mind remains a minefield. At this point, the enemy is no longer just within you, but spread across every screen, every click, and every digital distraction. This is why mental and digital cleansing is so crucial. Social media, pornography, series, and innocent videos are loaded with triggers that sap your vital energy. A man who wants to master himself needs to choose what he consumes with the same care he chooses what he eats. Imagine your mind as a house. If it's full of junk, notifications, comparisons, empty content, there's no room for clarity or focus. Semen retention is useless if your mind remains polluted. Therefore, this is the time for a radical cleanse. Eliminate distracting accounts, unfollow provoking profiles, and replace passive consumption with something that elevates you. Read good books like The Power of the Subconscious or Meditations by Marcus Aurelius can be a great start. Digital detox also requires genuine disconnection. Men need to relearn how to be with themselves without having to escape to a screen. Outdoor walks, quiet hikes, and moments of introspection help recalibrate the mind. It's in this silence that the energy of semen retention begins to circulate more harmoniously. Many report that, by distancing themselves from excessive stimuli, the mind becomes more creative and focus naturally increases. It's like trading noise for clarity. Another key factor is the environment. A disorganized room, a cell phone vibrating every minute, and a chaotic routine drain vital energy. A man experiencing semen retention needs to understand that everything around him influences his energy field. Putting order in the house is putting order within himself. A clean, quiet, and organized environment creates a mental space of power, and this strengthens control. This is what differentiates those who merely try from those who truly transform. With a clearer mind and a purified environment, a strange but powerful sensation emerges: inner silence. In this silence, the person begins to notice old emotions surfacing: anger, guilt, fear, need. It's the sign that the body is ready for the next step, facing the emotions that fueled the addiction. And that's precisely where the journey begins to deepen. At this point, the body begins to respond more intensely to semen retention. Accumulated energy demands space to circulate, and the body needs to be prepared to sustain it. It's like fueling a powerful engine with pure fuel. If the system is dirty, it fails. Therefore, nutrition becomes one of the pillars of this practice. Eating well is not just a matter of health, but of energy. Living foods, fruits, vegetables, nuts, and pure water strengthen the magnetic field and keep the body light, ideal for those raising their frequency. The body is the temple where this energy resides. If it's inflamed, tense, or intoxicated, semen retention becomes a struggle. Cutting back on sugar, alcohol, caffeine, and processed foods is like lifting weights from the soul. It's also the ideal time to incorporate physical practices like stretching, yoga, or martial arts. These activities help move vital energy and channel it to the top of the head, transforming desire into focus and vitality. Breathing also plays a powerful role. Many men underestimate the power of conscious breathing. A simple technique, inhaling deeply through the nose for 4 seconds, holding for 2, and releasing slowly through the mouth, can calm the nervous system and maintain control when desire arises. This is pure alchemy, transforming impulse into serenity. The man who masters his breath, masters his mind. Another essential point is rest. Without quality sleep, there's no retention that can last. The body uses the nighttime to regenerate and balance hormones. Going to bed early, avoiding screen time at night, and creating a pre-bedtime ritual, such as drinking a calming tea or meditating, is a way to respect your own temple. Sexual energy doesn't flourish in a tired body, but in one aligned with its natural rhythms. After a few days of caring for his body, he begins to notice subtle changes: more strength, more energy, a feeling of physical power that's hard to describe. But this is precisely where the real challenge arises: dealing with the emotions that surface when the body is no longer the mind's refuge. It's time to learn to master the impulses that arise from the heart, not just the body. At this point, the man realizes that the greatest battlefield is not the body, but the emotions. Semen retention awakens repressed feelings, anxiety, anger, loneliness, all of which he used to numb with instant pleasure. When stimulation is cut off, the subconscious opens, and old pains surface. This is where many mistake discomfort for relapse, when in fact it is purification. The man who desires mastery must learn to feel without reacting. It is in the midst of emotional chaos that true strength is found. Mastering impulses doesn't mean repressing emotions, but understanding them. If you feel anger, transform it into productive action. Clean your room, exercise, study. If you feel sad, write or meditate. Every emotion is a form of energy awaiting a new destination. The key is not to let desire turn into despair. Therefore, being aware of triggers is essential. A glance, a memory, a moment of boredom can turn into traps. Observing before acting is what separates the wise from the impulsive. A powerful tool at this stage is self-talk. Instead of fighting desire, talk to it. Ask, "What do you want to show me?" This simple question transforms the impulse into self-knowledge. The man who practices semen retention realizes that desire is actually a messenger from the unconscious, not an enemy. Each impulse contains a lesson about lack, attachment, and the need for control. The more he listens, the more he understands himself. Gradually, a sense of peace emerges amidst the turmoil. What was once an uncontrolled fire begins to become an inner warmth, a stable, mature, and silent energy. This is emotional transmutation, the point at which a man stops running away and begins to observe himself. It is the moment when he stops being a slave to his emotions and becomes their master. And it is here that semen retention ceases to be a physical challenge and becomes a spiritual training. But there's still a step to climb. When emotions begin to stabilize, the body enters a vibrant, almost electric state. Vital energy begins to naturally rise up the spine, and the person feels the pulse of life coursing within them. It's at this point that they need to learn to use this power consciously, transforming desire into productivity and energy into purpose. After overcoming the first emotional battles, the man begins to feel something new, an inner flow, a constant vibration that seems to pulse in every cell. It's the awakening of vital energy. Semen retention ceases to be merely a practice of control and becomes an experience of expansion. The libido, previously wasted, begins to transform into creative energy. He realizes he can channel this power into whatever he wants: work, studies, art, projects, or simply to radiate a more assertive and confident presence. This is the point at which many feel a natural increase in self-confidence. Their gaze becomes more penetrating, their posture more erect, and their voice firmer. People notice, even without knowing why. It's magnetism emerging. But with it comes a new test, the ego. Many mistake the glow of energy for superiority. The true practitioner of semen retention understands that power lies not in dominating others, but in dominating oneself. They use magnetism to inspire, not to impress. At this stage, productivity skyrockets. The individual feels an uncontrollable urge to do, to create, to act. What once seemed like laziness was simply misdirected energy. Now, the same drive that led to relapse transforms into focus and ambition. New objectives often emerge: business ideas, personal goals, the desire for spiritual development. Everything flows more clearly because vital energy begins to sustain the mind, not the other way around. It's important, however, to maintain balance. With so much rising energy, there's a risk of overexertion and falling into excess. The body is still adjusting to this new power. Therefore, taking care of your breathing, getting enough sleep, and continuing to exercise are essential measures. This way, energy doesn't accumulate chaotically, but flows harmoniously. This is the secret to keeping your inner fire burning without burning out. With this force pulsing within him, the man begins to realize that semen retention is more than self-control, it's pure alchemy. He not only conserves energy, but transforms it into creative power, intuition, and clarity. And when this energy begins to be consciously directed upward, something grand happens. Energetic reprogramming, the next step on this journey. At this point, the man is no longer the same. The energy accumulated by semen retention begins to act as a force field that changes everything around him. He becomes more selective about what he consumes, who he associates with, and even what he thinks. It's as if new software is being installed within him, a system based on consciousness and purpose. But all reprogramming requires attention. Negative thoughts and dense emotions can still drain vital energy, so it's essential to learn to raise one's vibrational frequency daily. One of the most effective practices during this phase is conscious breathing. Inhaling slowly, visualizing the energy rising up the spine, and exhaling, imagining it expanding throughout the body, creates a flow of real power. This technique, when practiced with discipline, transmutes sexual energy into spiritual energy. It's like turning coal into diamonds. Each breath is a reminder that man is not a slave to desires, but the alchemist who transforms them into light and presence. Daily affirmations also work as reprogramming tools. Simple yet powerful phrases like, "My energy creates my destiny," or "I am the guardian of my life force," shape the subconscious. Repetition breeds belief, and belief changes behavior. This is how semen retention ceases to be a temporary practice and begins to redefine a man's identity. He ceases to be someone who tries to resist and becomes someone who naturally lives in self-control. Another essential aspect is the energetic environment. During these times, sensitivity increases. People begin to perceive vibrations, heavy places, draining people, inane conversations. This isn't arrogance, it's awareness. They understand that every interaction is an exchange of energy. Learning to protect oneself, practicing silence, and spending more time in nature help keep the vibrational field clean and high. The energy that was previously lost in excess now serves as a shield and guide. With mind and body aligned, a new sensation emerges: presence. That steady, calm gaze that conveys respect without saying a word. It's the manifestation of inner power. But this magnetism still needs to be honed. It's time to learn to walk through the world with this strength, without being corrupted by ego or vanity. And it is precisely at this point that the awakening of magnetic presence begins. When semen retention reaches this stage, something almost mystical happens. The man realizes he no longer needs to speak much to be noticed. His mere presence communicates confidence, focus, and poise. People look at him differently, not because of his physical beauty, but because of the energy he transmits. It's magnetism in action, a silent force that doesn't impose itself, it simply exists. This inner glow is a direct result of accumulated and consciously directed vital energy. He doesn't seek attention, it simply finds him. This magnetic presence isn't born of pride, but of coherence. The person begins to act in alignment with what they think and feel. There's no longer any contradiction between their words and actions, and this creates a powerful vibration. People feel safe around them, inspired without understanding why. It's as if they carry a different frequency, an aura of serenity. It's the kind of presence that effortlessly fills a room, and this is only possible because of inner mastery. Semen retention becomes the foundation of this new identity. The gaze deepens, the posture straightens, and the breathing becomes calmer. The man who once sought instant pleasure is now satisfied with simply being. He begins to notice synchronicities, opportunities that arise, conversations that flow, people who appear at the right moment. Everything seems to conspire in favor of those who vibrate at a high frequency. And this isn't cheap mysticism, it's energy physics, like vibrations attract. However, the true power of magnetic presence lies in humility. When a person understands that this energy does not belong to them, but flows through them, they become a channel of inspiration. Magnetism grows not when one tries to control it, but when one surrenders to the flow of life. Sexual energy, once chaotic, is now ordered, refined, and transformed into light. It is the point where instinct and spirit begin to work together, in perfect harmony. And when this balance is achieved, something higher begins to manifest. The man doesn't just feel energy, he feels connection. A silent connection with something greater, as if the divine begins to reveal itself within him. This is the moment when semen retention ceases to be just a practice and becomes a spiritual portal. And it is precisely this profound connection that begins to emerge in the following days. At this point, a man begins to realize that semen retention is much more than discipline. It's a bridge between the physical and the spiritual. The vital energy, now purified, transforms into inner light. He feels a constant presence within, a silent force that guides, protects, and inspires him. It's as if an invisible channel has opened between him and the divine. What was once desire is now devotion. Pleasure no longer comes from outside, but from a profound peace that arises from within. This is the moment when intuition blossoms. Decisions that previously generated doubt now seem obvious. Answers come in the form of signs, coincidences, and subtle sensations. It's the universe responding to the frequency of your energy. Semen retention, when practiced consciously, awakens this spiritual sensitivity. The man begins to feel what he previously only thought. This refined perception makes him wiser, more compassionate, and more aware of the impact he has on the world around him. But spiritual connection isn't just about light. It requires surrender and humility. There are days when silence seems distant, and the ego tries to regain control. It's in these moments that practice shows its true value: praying, meditating, and turning inward. The simple act of placing a hand on your chest and breathing deeply can reconnect you to the present. The secret is trust. When you trust, energy flows and the divine acts. Practices such as meditation, pranayama breathing, or simply walking barefoot on the earth strengthen this connection with the sacred. There's no rigid formula. Each person finds their own way to commune. The important thing is to keep the energy circulating, clean, and elevated. The more one honors this force within, the more it manifests externally, opening doors and attracting opportunities aligned with one's life purpose. It is in this state of connection that man understands. Semen retention is not abstinence, it is liberation. He stops seeking the divine in temples and finds it in his own body, in his own silence. But true mastery is yet to come, and it reveals itself when, even in the face of temptation, he remains firm, serene, and in complete control of himself. Now, the man reaches the stage where semen retention ceases to be a challenge and becomes a natural state. He no longer fights desire because he has learned to understand it. Temptations still arise, wet dreams, visual stimuli, moments of stress, but the reaction is different. Instead of giving in, he observes. Instead of blaming himself, he understands. Energy is not wasted, it is recycled. Each time he conquers the impulse, he grows spiritually stronger, like a warrior who wins without having to fight. True self-control isn't rigidity, it's flexibility with awareness. A man learns to recognize his limits and use tools to stay centered. Deep breathing, cold showers, strength training, and even periods of fasting help maintain focus. He discovers that the body is the soul's first training ground. And the more disciplined he is with his body, the freer his mind becomes. Semen retention is the path to self-sovereignty, the power to be enslaved to nothing. At this stage, the accumulated energy becomes stable. The mind, previously restless, gains clarity and firmness. The gaze conveys authority, not out of pride, but out of serenity. People perceive something different, a kind of invisible dominance, the power of one who needs nothing to be proven. The man who masters his instincts is not cold, he is whole. And this wholeness makes him irresistible, because his energy stops seeking and starts attracting. However, mastery requires vigilance. The ego loves to whisper that it's in control now, but all it takes is a single oversight for the cycle to begin again. This is why the wise man remains humble, aware that energy is a flow, not a possession. He continues practicing, observing, breathing. He knows that semen retention is not about perfection, but about presence. Each day is a new chance to reaffirm his inner power. When this level is reached, the person feels something profound. They are no longer driven by impulses, they are the ones who lead. Their vital energy stabilizes and begins to radiate naturally. They become a living reflection of discipline and clarity. And when self-mastery is achieved, the next step arises almost naturally. Total transformation, the birth of a new version, guided by purpose and inner power. After almost a month of practice, the man realizes that something profound has changed. Semen retention is no longer a conscious effort, but a way of life. Vital energy has ceased to be a brute force and has become a constant presence, calm, powerful, and balanced. The body is stronger, the mind clearer, and the spirit at peace. He no longer depends on external stimuli to feel alive, because he has discovered that the true source of pleasure is within. It is the birth of a new man, shaped by discipline and guided by consciousness. At this stage, creativity explodes. Ideas flow naturally, focus intensifies, and small distractions no longer hold sway. The person wakes with purpose, sleeps peacefully, and lives with direction. They understand that every drop of energy they once wasted was actually creative power being wasted. Now they create, build, and transform. Everything they touch seems to flourish because the energy that moves them is pure and intentional. This is the true meaning of transmutation, transforming instinct into fulfillment. The transformation is also visible. His eyes shine, his expression changes, and even his posture conveys confidence. He inspires respect without raising his voice. People notice the difference, even without understanding what has happened. It's the magnetism of balance, the silent force of those who master themselves. The man who practices semen retention for 30 days understands that he doesn't need to prove anything to the world. He is self-sufficient. His presence speaks for itself, and this presence is a living testament to his own evolution. But what's most important is what happens inside. He feels gratitude. Gratitude for his body, his energy, his mind, and the journey. Everything that once seemed like a struggle is now a learning experience. He understands that pleasure doesn't need to be denied, but sublimated. That desire doesn't need to be repressed, but transformed. And, above all, that sexual energy is the divine spark that connects him to creation. It's the power that moves the universe, and now he knows how to use it wisely. This is the definitive turning point. The man stops living as a victim of his instincts and becomes the creator of his own reality. His life begins to reflect his energy, healthier relationships, firmer decisions, and an unshakable sense of purpose. He doesn't just practice semen retention, he becomes retention itself, a symbol of dominance, power, and presence. And looking back, he realizes that that first day was just the beginning of something much greater. Having come this far, one thing is clear: you are no longer the same. Semen retention has transformed your body, mind, and soul. The man who once sought pleasure by running away from himself now finds satisfaction in his own presence. You've overcome internal battles that most would never dare face, and what you've achieved is not just control, but awareness. Now you know the value of your energy, and that changes everything. But the real journey begins now. What's the point of accumulating energy if it's not used to create, serve, and prosper? Use this force to build the life you deserve. Direct it toward your purpose, your business, your art, and your spiritual development. Remember, energy without direction becomes chaos. Energy with purpose becomes power. The man who masters semen masters destiny. And this places him among the rare few who have awakened from the slumber of mediocrity. Ask yourself, do you just want to know about semen retention, or do you want to truly experience it? Are you willing to become the kind of man whose energy changes the environment, whose presence inspires respect, whose discipline generates admiration? Because the world needs men like that, conscious, determined, and spiritually strong. The world needs you at your full potential. So, don't stop here. Keep studying, practicing, and expanding. Delve into the power that lies within you. And if you want to understand in detail the techniques, secrets, and ancient practices that amplify this power, access the ebook. The Power of Semen Retention. The link is on first pinned comment there. You will discover how to transform this practice into a lifestyle that multiplies energy, focus, and magnetism. Now tell me, will you just watch other men awaken, or will you become the one who awakens the world itself? If this content inspired you, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. Here, you'll continue learning how to use your energy to evolve spiritually, mentally, and financially. Because the man who masters his energy, masters his own reality.